My name is Michio Kaku, and this evening, I'd like to invite you on a journey that commenced not with an explosion, a mysterious signal, or even a remarkable scientific advancement, but rather with a straightforward misunderstanding. Initially, we believed we had found a comet. Nothing more, nothing less. An ancient, frigid wanderer, traversing the depths of interstellar space, gliding past our solar system for a fleeting moment before resuming its eternal journey. However, the cosmos has a sense of humor, and it seldom divulges its secrets without a struggle. The object we now refer to as 3I Atlas would not conform to the behavior of any comet we had previously encountered. When the Atlas Observatory in Chile detected it in July 2025, astronomers considered it routines, just another interstellar guest, akin to Oumuamua. Its hyperbolic orbit assured us it was not bound to our sun. While that was intriguing, it wasn't exactly shocking. After all, the universe is expansive, and objects occasionally pass through. Yet upon closer examination, as we monitored its faint tail ignited by the solar wind, we recognized something was profoundly amiss. A comet's tail is always directed away from the sun, propelled by radiation pressure. This is as fundamental as gravity itself. But 3I Atlas defied this principle. Its tail pointed directly at the sun, resembling a compass needle that had gone air, not drifting, not fluctuating. It aligned with intention and symmetry, akin to a machine calibrating its antenna. Then, as abruptly as it had aligned, it reversed, cleanly, like flipping a cosmic switch. That was when many scientists first felt their hair stand on end. Comets don't behave this way. Dust and ice don't engage in perfect geometric maneuvers. This was something entirely different, something purposeful. Consequently, we directed our most powerful instruments toward it. The revelations from the James Webb Space Telescope and those initial spectral observations shook even the most doubtful researchers. Typical comets consist of frozen water mixed with carbon dust, methane, ammonia, and organic materials, what we colloquially refer to as dirty snowballs. But 3I Atlas was almost entirely composed of carbon dioxide, nearly 90% with virtually no water whatsoever. A comet devoid of water is already peculiar, but one radiating from within as it emitted heat was even stranger. And then, there was the metallurgia composition rich in nickel but devoid of iron. Nickel and iron typically occur together in nature, fused within stars. You cannot separate them without intense industrial processes. Yet, here was a nickel-dominated structure with a deficit of iron so extreme that it didn't align with any known celestial body. That's when some of us began to murmur, "This isn't a rock, it's a vessel." However, science demands a careful approach. Many awaited the sun to settle the debate as 3I Atlas drew near perihelion, the moment it would confront the sun's intense heat and gravitational stress. Telescopes worldwide braced for the dramatic disintegration that almost all comets undergo. But instead of shattering, it persevered. The sun even unleashed a coronal mass ejection, straight at a solar shotgun blast capable of stripping atmospheres from planets. Yet 3I Atlas didn't flinch. It absorbed the impact and pushed onward, its temperature stabilizing as if wrapped in some kind of thermal protection. No comet behaves like this. A spacecraft might, however. Then there was its shape, a long, narrow object with a 10:1 aspect ratio reminiscent of yet devoid of the chaotic tumbling that characterized that earlier visitor. 3I Atlas moved with complete stability, controlled and balanced, as though guided by an onboard system maintaining real-time orientation. My colleague, Professor Avalop, a brilliant mind, not known for exaggeration, estimated the probability of us observing an artificial object to be 40%. Many criticized him for this audacious claim. After what I witnessed, I started to question whether he was being overly cautious. Soon enough, 3I Atlas committed the most significant violation of physics we had yet seen. Instead of accelerating away from the sun, using the gravitational slingshot effect, a maneuver we employ when launching probes deeper into space, this object accelerated. Do you grasp what that implies? There are no brakes in space. Nothing simply opts to slow down unless it has propulsion or intent. Yet 3I Atlas eased into a gradual, steady braking curve, akin to a spacecraft nearing its destination, and as it decelerated, something else occurred, something subtle, faint, and unmistakable. We detected a signal, 3 pulses, a pause, 3 pulses, a pause, repeating every 247 seconds on the hydrogen line. This frequency is universally recognized and has been posited for over half a century as a potential means of interstellar communication. The very frequency we anticipated all civilizations would comprehend. Hydrogen is the universe's most abundant element. Its spectral line serves as a cosmic north star for communication. And now, something out there was utilizing it. Not random, static, or cosmic noise. This was a pattern, a rhythm, a structured mathematical design. At that moment, we crossed a threshold that humanity has both feared and longed for throughout the centuries. We were no longer questioning whether we were alone in the universe. We were listening to something that might already be aware of our existence, yet the scientific community was divided. Half believed 3I Atlas represented our first encounter with an interstellar probe, perhaps ancient, perhaps automated, perhaps a remnant of a long-lost civilization. The other half clung desperately to natural explanations, convincing themselves that the universe could, through sheer coincidence, mimic intelligence. But as additional data poured in, denial became progressively harder to maintain. The James Webb Telescope captured an unusual polarization pattern from its surface that shifted in tandem with the radio pulses. Observatories in Chile recorded its tale, bifurcating into two luminous streams intersecting at a precise 90-degree angle. A geometry nature does not produce in comet tails. It appeared less like gas escaping and more like a signaling system. The world observed with growing apprehension as 3I-ATLAS drifted beyond Earth's orbital plane. On August 29th, it made a minor yet purposeful adjustment, aligning its trajectory just right with the ecliptic plane of the outer planets. For 27 hours, its predicted path formed a perfect straight line that traversed directly through Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. As it maintained that alignment, it began to glow gently, pulsating at intervals that mirrored the orbital resonances of our solar system, as if measuring, calibrating, or harmonizing with the planetary arrangement. This was choreography. This was intention. Then came the flash, a sudden, focused beam of ultraviolet light lasting precisely 2.8 seconds, potent enough to ionize the solar wind. Narrow, directed, and not scattered. When we traced its trajectory across the sky, it pointed to a region between Vega and Lyra, the origin of the famed WOW signal recorded in 1977. Then, just as quickly as it had started, everything ceased. The light vanished. The radio pulses disappeared. 3-1. Atlas went dark, and thus, the greatest mystery in the annals of astronomy was merely beginning. When 3I Atlas vanished, the world fell into an odd silence, not one of absence, but of anticipation, as if the universe itself had paused to inhale. Observatories across the globe continued tracking its last known coordinates, eagerly awaiting even the faintest hint of a thermal trace or reflected glimmer. But it seemed as though the object had simply evaporated into the void. NASA officially categorized it as optically lost, a term that may sound benign until one comprehends its implications. An object capable of controlled braking, directional ultraviolet signaling, and conscious alignment had intentionally vanished from our instruments. Still, the disappearance was only the beginning. Deep within the raw telemetry of the James Webb Space Telescope, recorded in the final milliseconds before the UV flash faded, scientists discovered something extraordinary. When the data was reconstructed, a faint interference pattern emerged, a modulation in the light itself, subtle yet intentional, as though someone had intricately woven a message into the very fabric of that last beam. Within that modulation, we uncovered structure neither alphabetic nor symbolic, but something far more ancient. A series of repeating frequency ratios, the same ones observed in hydrogen transitions, the same harmonic intervals embodying planetary orbital resonances, most unsettlingly, the same rhythmic frequency found in Earth's natural electromagnetic heartbeat. This was not mere random cosmic noise. This was a fingerprint, a signature, akin to a calling card. When analysts at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics applied wave analysis to the signal, even the most seasoned physicists were astounded. The interference pattern did not resemble a two-dimensional waveform. It took the form of a three-dimensional lattice spiraling, interwoven structure evocative of DNA's double helix. But this was not biological. It was mathematical geometric language, a universal constant encoded in resonance rather than symbols, a blueprint not of life but of intention. My colleague, who had once cautiously suggested that 3I Atlas might be artificial, described this revelation as a cosmic form of handwriting, not a message meant to be read, but one intended to be felt, embedded within the very vibrations of energy. If he was correct, then whatever intelligence crafted this artifact hadn't anticipated us deciphering sentences, but rather grasping harmonies. The moment this information leaked through back channels, NASA invoked classification protocols. Files vanished. Servers were purged. The SETI Institute released a meticulously curated statement claiming no credible evidence of artificial structures. The European Space Agency discreetly shut down several public data archives for maintenance. Yet the truth had already surfaced. Before the lockdown, independent researchers worldwide managed to replicate the waveform and input it into quantum resonance simulators. What transpired next should have been impossible. As the waveform cycled through the simulators, a harmonic echo began to grow steadily, predictably, as if the signal were interacting with space-time itself. Then, upon reaching a precise threshold, the entire simulation inverted, collapsed, and ceased. But not before yielding a final output, a phrase automatically generated by an AI translation module crafted to convert mathematical symmetry into linguistic meaning. The phrase was simple, terrifying, and beautiful. "We remember you," for a brief period less than 2 hours. This phrase circulated through scientific bulletin boards, encrypted university channels, and private research groups. Like a spark igniting dry grass, it triggered an explosive debate. What could it signify? Who was recalling us? Were we being addressed as a species, as a life form, or as players in a cosmic story, long forgotten? But within a day, every reference to the phrase disappeared, deleted, scrubbed, denied. The official narrative stabilized. 3IATLAS was a natural comet. Its irregularities merely the product of sensor errors and Yet those who had seen the data could not forget it, nor could they disregard what followed. 2 months post the disappearance of 3IATLAS, multiple observatories began to detect faint echoes of the same harmonic signature embedded within the UV flash. But these echoes didn't originate from Vega or Lyra, nor from any point outside our solar system. They were emanating from within. It unechoed deep within the heliosphere, weak and almost imperceptible, yet undeniably recognizable. Some dismissed it as solar interference. Others speculated that it was merely a reflection of the original signal reverberating through the sun's magnetic fields. However, a small, influential group, the same researchers who first identified the frequency lattice, proposed a more unsettling theory. They believed the echo represented not a response from the artifact that had departed us, but from something entirely different. Amid this simmering debate, humanity faced a parallel crisis, not one of science, but of belief. For a phenomenon as profound as 3I Atlas does not exist in isolation. It breaches barriers between disciplines, worldviews, and the physical and metaphysical realms. For millennia, the heavens have served as our canvas for meaning. Comets were seen as omens, eclipses signaled warnings, and the stars conveyed messages from the divine. Now, in our modern context, an object showcasing intelligence had entered our system, transmitted a mathematical message, aligned itself with our planet, signaled toward a star famous for a mysterious transmission, and left behind a code that proclaimed, "We remember you." To some traditional religions, this posed an existential threat. If humanity is no longer solitary in the universe, what implications does that have for Scripture? For divine uniqueness? For the notion that we were created in the likeness of God? Some leaders denounced the discovery as deception, heresy, or even a test. Yet others viewed 3I Atlas as validation, a sign of a creator vast enough to fill the cosmos with numerous children. For Eastern traditions, this object seemed less disruptive and more like confirmation. Buddhism, Hinduism, and various other philosophies that embrace cycles of creation and reincarnation experienced no contradiction in the concept of advanced beings existing elsewhere in the universe. The arrival of 3I Atlas fits seamlessly within their cosmologies, where gods, devas, and enlightened entities inhabit an infinite multiverse of realms. Then, they were advocates of paleocontact, the ancient astronaut theories long dismissed by mainstream academics. For them, 3I Atlas represented not a first contact, but a return, a reminder, a check-in from whatever intelligence might have visited Earth in antiquity. If that were true, the message "We remember you" carried a chilling implication. We recall what you once were. We have come to witness what you have become. However, whether the message constituted a warning or a welcome, a threat or a promise, one truth had become undeniable. 3IATLAS was not merely passing through. It sought to activate something, perhaps within our solar system or deep within ourselves. A mirror held up to humanity, reflecting our aspirations, fears, and unanswered inquiries. As echoes of that harmonic signature continued to pulse softly through the heliosphere, one thing became increasingly apparent. The story was far from over. 3I Atlas had not abandoned us. It had awakened us. While humanity remained divided between skepticism and belief, fear and hope, the echoes within our solar system grew ever so slightly stronger, not sufficiently to dominate headlines, nor to trigger alarms, but just enough for those observing closely to sense that a new chapter was unfolding. The harmonic signature, so faint that it existed on the edge of what instruments could detect, carried the same ratios, the same resonant fingerprints that were embedded in the last flash emitted by 3I Atlas. Yet this time, its source was no longer an enigma drifting toward the stars. It was close and comfortably close, somewhere within the confines of the heliosphere, as if an unseen tuning fork had been struck, and the solar system was beginning to resonate in reply. Some scientists contended that these echoes were simply the byproduct of solar-wind interactions or magnetohydrodynamic turbulence. Yet the pattern continued, predictable, rhythmic, intentional. In laboratories around the globe, where previous simulations had collapsed, with the haunting phrase, "We remember you," researchers began to entertain the possibility that the artifact had awakened something dormant, something patiently waiting for the right frequency, the right moment, the right call. However, the true significance of the 3I Atlas encounter reached far beyond the realm of physics. It pierced to the core of human identity. For the first time, we were confronted with a phenomenon that eluded neat classification within either scientific investigation or religious doctrine. It was both, yet it was neither a riddle crafted from mathematics, an enigma, logic, and awe. As debates intensified, humanity found itself grappling with inquiries older than civilization itself. Who are we? Why are we here? Are we participants in a narrative larger than our own? The mere existence of an artificial interstellar probe, if that is indeed what 3i Atlas represented would redefine humanity's position within the cosmos. For some, it undermined the notion of divine centrality. For others, it expanded the majesty of creation, and for millions around the globe, it ignited an insatiable thirst for connection, for meaning, and for confirmation that intelligence beyond our fragile world not only existed, but acknowledged us. The message we remember you reverberated across cultures, interpreted in countless ways. Some found solace, others sensed a warning, but regardless of the interpretation, one truth endured. Memory implies history. If we were remembered, then at some point, perhaps long before written history, humanity may have been known. Consider the implications. These would not be visitors glimpsing us for the first time, but witnesses returning. Not explorers discovering a new world, but caretakers checking in on an ancient one. Yet, despite the philosophical storms unfurling across the globe, and the classified documents and the hushed scientific discussions, an even deeper, more personal transformation was underway. For the first time in generations, humanity collectively lifted its gaze upward. The stars transformed into more than distant, indifferent beacons. They became possible homes, potential origins, possible destinations. The universe felt less like a desolate ocean and more like a vast network of undiscovered civilizations, untold stories, and unseen harmonies. Perhaps that was the true purpose of the object, not to convey a message of domination or salvation, nor to instill fear or provide comfort, but to awaken something within us that had remained dormant for far too long. Curiosity freed from fear, imagination unchained from doctrine, unity born not from politics, but from wonder. If 3i Atlas came to impart knowledge, then its lesson was straightforward. You are not alone, you are never alone, and you are part of something immeasurably greater. The disappearance of the object did not conclude the narrative. It opened it. The faint whispers detected in the heliosphere resembled murmurs at the brink of a significant revelation, whether they emanated from a concealed companion, a dormant probe, or some deeper cosmic phenomenon yet to be conceived. They indicated that true contact and authentic connection was not an event, but rather a process. A gradual unfolding, a preparation. One day, perhaps sooner than we anticipate, humanity might very well find itself on the threshold of the most significant transition in its history, not due to the arrival of a visitor, but because we finally become capable of comprehending what has always been present. A universe permeated with intelligence, consciousness, and connections, a universe where communication transcends mere words and resides within frequency, harmony, and geometry, a universe where light itself serves as a language. Thus, as we reflect on this extraordinary occurrence, this visitor that was not a comet, not an asteroid, and not a natural entity, we must entertain the notion that 3i Atlas was never intended to remain. Its purpose was to traverse, to leave behind an impression, a code, a question, and a memory, a single spark to ignite a transformation in how we perceive ourselves. Perhaps its ultimate act was not a farewell, but an invitation to evolve, to awaken, to engage in a dialogue that spans the stars. And as long as those faint echoes persist, softly vibrating through the heliosphere like ripples in a cosmic ocean, one truth grows increasingly undeniable: the universe is speaking, and at long last, for the very first time in human history, we are listening.